You know, there's a hidden health crisis brewing, and it's not in some far-off lab. It's actually happening inside millions of us, and it's linked directly to the food we put on our plates every single day. This is the story of how our modern diet can quietly and relentlessly damage one of our most vital organs. And that really leads to a pretty confronting question, doesn't it? Is your liver secretly in trouble? For most of us, we have no idea. The damage can build up for years without a single noticeable symptom. And that silence, well, that's exactly what makes this whole thing so dangerous. So to really understand that danger, we need to define the problem first. We've got to look at what this silent buildup actually is and why it's become such a massive concern for doctors and researchers all over the world. All right, so the condition has a bit of a mouthful for a name: metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, or we'll just call it MASLD. The key word you want to focus on there is steatotic, which is just a fancy way of saying fatty. And get this isn't some rare, obscure illness. We're talking about something that affects a staggering 1/5 of the entire global population. That's 1 in 5 people. It gets called a silent disease because in those early stages, you feel perfectly fine. There are zero warning signs, and it's directly fueled by some of the most common health issues of our time. Things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and high cholesterol. So you can kind of think of it as this quiet consequence of our overall metabolic health just being out of whack. This problem has become so widespread that researchers are now turning to some pretty advanced stuff, like artificial intelligence and machine learning, just to be able to spot the disease early without having to do invasive biopsies. The fact that we even need tools like that really just highlights how urgent it is to understand the root cause, which, believe it or not, often starts with something deceptively simple: sugar. So to get a handle on how fat even builds up in the liver in the first place, we have to look at what we're putting into our bodies. And one of the biggest culprits out there is sugar. It does way more than just add calories. It fundamentally hijacks our brain chemistry.
Yeah, the whole issue really starts in the brain. When you eat sugar, your brain's reward system gets this jolt of a chemical called dopamine. It's like a little bell rings in your head that says, "Hey, that was great, let's do that again." And your brain, well, it very quickly starts to crave the sound of that bell.
And this kicks off a really vicious cycle. You eat some sugar, you get that dopamine hit, and you feel pleasure. That great feeling then hardwires a craving right into your brain, pushing you to go find more sugar just to get that same reward again. It becomes this powerful, self-reinforcing loop that's really tough to break. And just like with other addictive things, the brain starts to build up a tolerance. Your dopamine receptors, they actually become less sensitive. What does that mean for you? It means that over time, you need more and more sugar just to get that same level of pleasure, that same satisfying ring from the bell. This is what drives overconsumption, and that's what starts to put immense stress on your liver. But here's the thing, that sugar overload is only half of the story. While our diet is flooding our system with one thing, it's often starving it of another, a crucial defender nutrient that your liver desperately needs to do its job properly. And that nutrient is called choline. A lot of people have never even heard of it, but it is an absolutely essential nutrient. Your body needs it to build the very structure of your cells. But its most important role, at least for this story, is to create the little vehicles that transport fat out of your liver. Okay, this analogy makes the whole process crystal clear. I want you to think of your liver as a busy shipping warehouse. Its job is to process fats and then ship them out to the body. Well, choline is the raw material. It's literally the cardboard and the packing cape that you need to make the shipping boxes. So if you run out of packing materials, what happens? The warehouse just fills up with inventory that has nowhere to go. So here's the actual science behind that analogy. Your liver packages fat into these particles called VLDL. But to build the outer shell of these VLD particles, it needs something called phosphatidylcholine, which is made directly from, you guessed it, choline. So if you don't have enough choline, you can't build the VLD vehicles. The whole shipping process just grinds to a halt, and fat starts piling up right inside your liver cells. And researchers have uncovered a really fascinating hormonal connection here. It turns out the hormone estrogen actually helps the body produce its own choline by flipping on a specific gene. This provides a kind of natural protective effect, which helps explain why premenopausal women often have a lower risk. It also means that after menopause, when estrogen levels drop, the need to get enough choline from our diet becomes even more critical. So let's just put it all together here. You've got this two-part problem. On one side, you have high sugar intake that's flooding the liver and driving this cycle of overconsumption. And on the other side, you have a low choline intake that's completely sabotaging the liver's ability to export all that fat. It's truly a perfect storm for fat to just build up and up. Now, this might all sound pretty grim, I know, but the most important part of this story isn't the problem, it's the solution. The science here is actually incredibly hopeful. It shows us that this damage is not a one-way street. It can absolutely be reversed. This quote from researchers at the University of Missouri School of Medicine really says it all. This doesn't have to be your destiny. The progression of this disease can be stopped, and in a lot of cases, it can even be reversed. That really puts the power right back in your hands. And you know, the most effective treatment available right now isn't some miracle drug or a complicated medical procedure. It's a targeted, dedicated change to our lifestyle. The solution is found in what we choose to eat and how we choose to move. So what does that intervention actually look like? Come on, let's break it down into a simple, actionable 5-step plan to get your liver back on the right track. Okay, step 1. This one focuses on a single, really powerful number. According to the Mayo Clinic, you don't need some radical transformation. Losing just 5 to 10% of your total body weight can significantly reduce fat in your liver. That's an achievable goal with a massive, massive impact. Step 2 is all about what to add to your diet. You want to focus on a Mediterranean-style way of eating. Think whole, unprocessed foods. Fatty fish like salmon and tuna, they're fantastic for their anti-inflammatory omega-3s. Whole grains, nuts, fruits, and veggies give you fiber and vital nutrients. And olive oil is an amazing source of healthy fats.
All right, step 3, and this one is so critical. You have to fix that deficiency we talked about. So actively boost your choline intake. Egg yolks are one of the richest sources you can find. Lean meats, fish like salmon and cod, peanuts, and dairy products, these are all excellent ways to get those raw materials your liver needs to start shipping out all that stored up fat.
Step 4 is about what to reduce. This means cutting way back on the main culprits. Sugary drinks like sodas and juices should be the top priority to eliminate. Then, reduce refined carbs like white bread and chips, and try to minimize those highly processed foods that are just packed with sugar, unhealthy fats, and sodium. And, of course, limiting alcohol is absolutely essential for your liver's health. And that brings us to the final step, step 5, which is all about action. You have the blueprint now. You understand the problem, you see the causes, and you know the solution. Listen, this is not about changing everything overnight. It's just about starting somewhere. So, let me ask you, what is the first small change you're going to make today?
All right, quick reset. Blink twice, stretch your shoulders, and don't worry, your health lesson isn't over yet. We're switching gears now, but this next topic is just as important for your body. And if you care about staying healthy the smart way, make sure you're subscribed.
You know that feeling, right? That uncomfortable bloating, the gas, just feeling digestively off. It's so common. But what if I told you a huge part of the solution isn't about what you're eating, but when you're eating? We're about to uncover this really powerful built-in cleaning system your body has, a system that honestly, most of us are accidentally shutting down all day long. And I'm sure you know this sound, that gurgle, that rumble deep in your belly. We always just chalk it up to our stomach begging for food. But what if that sound is actually something completely different?
That's right. That rumbling is often the sound of this incredibly sophisticated biological housekeeping system firing up, getting ready to sweep your intestines clean. Pretty cool, huh? So let's get into what's really going on here. So we're talking about something called the migrating motor complex, or MMC for short. And honestly, the best way to think about it is as your gut's very own personal street sweeper. It's really the unsung hero of our digestive health.
So what is this thing really? Well, scientifically, the MMC is this amazing pattern of muscular waves that pushes its way down your small intestine. But the most important part of this whole definition, the part you really need to remember, is that last phrase, during periods of fasting. It only works when you're not eating. This breakdown just makes it so clear. Think about it like this. When you're eating, your gut is in party mode. It's totally focused on digesting your food and absorbing all those great nutrients. But the second that party is over, the moment you stop eating, it switches gears into cleanup mode. And that is when the MMC finally gets to clock in for work. And it's not just a simple on-off switch. The MMC works in a cycle, in 4 very distinct phases. It starts off quietly, then it starts to build up activity, and then it unleashes phase 3. This really intense, powerful, cleansing wave that does all the heavy lifting. After that, it winds down and gets ready to start the whole cycle over again. So what's it actually cleaning up with this big wave? Well, pretty much everything that gets left behind. We're talking about any undigested food bits, old cells that your intestinal lining has shed, and this is the most important one, excess bacteria.
And that brings us to the whole point of this system. The MMC's main job is to keep bacteria from setting up camp where they don't belong, in your small intestine. By sweeping them out regularly, it helps prevent a really common and problematic condition called SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Okay, so this brings us to the central challenge. This internal housekeeping system is fantastic, but it's also, a little picky about its work schedule. And the way we live our modern lives, we're constantly getting in its way.
Here's the magic number you need to know. Your gut's cleaning crew only starts its shift about 90 to 120 minutes after you've completely finished digesting your last meal. It needs an empty workspace before it can even think about starting to sweep.
And this quote from dietitian Andrea Hardy just nails the problem. She says, eating essentially resets the MMC. Think about that. Every single time you take a bite of food, even a handful of nuts, a tiny snack, the cleaning cycle just stops cold. The party starts up again, and the cleanup crew gets sent right back to the break room. That 90-minute clock has to start all over from zero.
I mean, just look at this timeline of a super typical day. Breakfast at 8, then a snack at 11, lunch at 1, another snack at 4, dinner, maybe a little something before bed. Every single one of those moments resets the MMC. The poor cleaning crew barely gets its brooms out of the closet before it's told, nope, stop what you're doing. That full, powerful cleansing wave, it might never even get a chance to happen during the day.
Okay, I know exactly what you're probably thinking right now. What about my coffee? I get it. Coffee is famous for, getting things moving. So it must be good for the MMC, right? Well, it's a little more complicated than that.
You see, while coffee does stimulate your colon, having it first thing in the morning can actually interrupt the final and most important cleaning cycles that have been running all night long while you are asleep and fasting. You might be accidentally cutting the cleanup crew shift short right before they finish the most important part of the job.
So what do we do about this? How do we stop interrupting our gut's cleaning crew and actually let them do their incredibly important work? Well, the good news is the solution is surprisingly simple. It's all about just giving them the time they need. This is basically the game plan. It's all about creating these meaningful breaks for your gut. So first, try to space your meals out by at least 4, maybe 5 hours. That means trying to avoid that constant grazing. Second, really aim for a solid 12-hour plus fast overnight. It can also help to just time your coffee. Maybe wait an hour or 2 after you wake up. And finally, try to finish your last meal at least a couple of hours before you go to bed. Every single one of these steps gives your gut's housekeeper a real chance to do a full, deep clean.
And here's a little bonus tip that just supports the whole system. A simple, gentle walk right after you eat. It doesn't directly trigger the MMC, but it does help with your overall gut motility. And that just makes the cleaning crew's job that much more effective when it finally gets its chance.
So let's bring all this back home. Understanding this hidden housekeeper in your gut isn't just a cool piece of biology trivia. It has a real, direct impact on how you feel every single day.
When you actually give your MMC the time it needs to work, the benefits are, well, they're tangible. You can feel them. You're getting to the root cause of so much of that common digestive discomfort. It leads to less bloating, less gas, and it creates a gut environment where all those healthy bacteria can actually thrive.
I mean, this slide really just says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you have a constantly interrupted MMC, which leads to stagnation, bacterial overgrowth, bloating, just discomfort. And on the other side, a supported MMC that's allowed to do its clean sweep, which leads to balanced bacteria and just plain digestive comfort. The choice is pretty clear. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that your body has this incredible self-cleaning system. It just needs us to give it a break. So as you think about your own daily routine, what's one small change you could make? Maybe it's just pushing that morning snack back an hour, or maybe it's finishing dinner a little earlier. That one tiny change could be all it takes to finally let your gut's hidden housekeeper get to work. All right, quick reset, blink twice, stretch your shoulders, and don't worry, your health lesson isn't over yet. We're switching gears now, but this next topic is just as important for your body. And if you care about staying healthy the smart way, make sure you're subscribed.
So let's just start with a big question that gets right to the heart of this. What if that mouthwash you're using every single day, the one you think is keeping you healthy, is actually sabotaging all the good work you're doing with your diet?
Okay, so we all know that eating leafy greens, things like spinach, beets, and arugula, is good for us. Of course, they're packed with vitamins and minerals, the whole deal. But one of their most powerful benefits for your heart comes from a molecule they help our bodies produce. And the way it happens, well, it's not as direct as you might think.
The whole secret really starts with a compound found in these vegetables called dietary nitrate. So when you eat that salad, you're loading up on this key ingredient. You can think of it as the raw material for a very, very important process in your body.
That raw material, the dietary nitrate, eventually gets converted into this absolute powerhouse molecule, nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is a vasodilator, which is just a fancy science way of saying it signals the muscles in your blood vessels to just relax. This widens them, improves your blood flow, and can help lower your blood pressure. It is a crucial player in your cardiovascular health.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. Our bodies, for all the amazing things they can do, can't actually make this conversion from nitrate to nitric oxide all by themselves. We need help. And that help comes from a pretty surprising place: the billions of microorganisms living right in our mouths.
The best way to visualize this is to think of your mouth as a sophisticated, microscopic factory. The bacteria that live on your tongue and in all the little crevices of your mouth, they're the essential workers on the assembly line, and they're performing a chemical conversion that our own cells just can't do.
And this right here perfectly illustrates how that factory works. It's a three-step pathway. First, you eat your leafy greens, and that provides the dietary nitrate. Second, specific bacteria in your mouth get to work, converting that nitrate into a new compound called nitrite. And finally, that nitrate gets absorbed into your bloodstream and converted by your body into that beneficial nitric oxide. Pretty cool, right?
And these guys? These are some of our star employees in that factory. A healthy oral microbiome is full of specific beneficial bacteria. They're not only crucial for producing nitric oxide, but they also help protect us from things like cavities and gum disease by basically outcompeting the more harmful bacteria. It's this whole carefully balanced ecosystem.
But what happens if that balanced ecosystem is disrupted? Well, as we're about to see, a very common daily habit, one that millions of people do in the name of good hygiene, might be throwing a massive wrench into this entire incredible system. The potential culprit is antiseptic mouthwash, the kind that promises to kill 99.9% of germs. Now, that sounds great on the surface, but the problem is it doesn't distinguish between the good germs and the bad ones.
So here's the crucial point. Powerful antiseptic ingredients like chlorhexidine are extremely effective at killing bacteria, but they're non-selective. They essentially carpet bomb your oral microbiome, wiping out the beneficial nitrate-converting bacteria right along with the ones that cause bad breath. This effectively shuts down your nitric oxide factory.
And this new understanding is changing how scientists view oral health. As researcher Louise Belfield says right here, we're realizing that this complex community of bacteria isn't something to be eliminated, but rather something to be nurtured. The majority of these bacteria are absolutely essential for our health.
And look, this isn't just a theory, it's an active area of scientific investigation. This slide actually shows the design of a clinical trial where researchers are specifically studying how using an antiseptic mouthwash impacts our vascular function compared to a placebo. They're measuring the real-world effects of disrupting the oral microbiome on our cardiovascular health.
Okay, so if these harsh antiseptic rinses can cause problems, what are the alternatives? Let's look at one popular practice that has gained a lot of attention.
A really popular one is oil pulling, which is an ancient Ayurvedic practice. But as this slide lays out, there's a bit of a disconnect. On one hand, you've got practitioners making claims about pulling toxins and improving health, and some early studies do suggest it might reduce certain bacteria. But on the other hand, major groups like the American Dental Association say there are just no reliable, high-quality scientific studies to back these claims up, and the proposed mechanism really isn't understood.
All of this brings us back to a central theme. The goal for oral health might not be to create a sterile, germ-free environment. Instead, it seems to be all about maintaining a healthy, balanced, and functional ecosystem.
What we've seen today is that the connection between your mouth and the rest of your body it's profound. The health of the bacteria in your mouth isn't just about preventing cavities, it is directly tied to your cardiovascular system through that nitric oxide pathway. So the big takeaway here is really a fundamental shift in perspective.
Instead of waging an all-out war on the germs in our mouth, the focus is shifting towards supporting the beneficial bacteria that work for us, helping them thrive so they can keep our whole body systems running smoothly.
And that leaves us with this final thought. If you think of your oral microbiome as a garden with both helpful plants and harmful weeds, it makes you reconsider your tools. Are you indiscriminately spraying a powerful weed killer, or are you selectively tending to the garden, providing fertilizer for the good things to grow? It's a whole new way to think about what a healthy mouth really means.
Thank you for being here with me today. Remember, small choices create big changes. Keep nourishing your health with love and consistency. See you in the next Vital Elixir video.